We're talking Joey Carbery next with Neil Tracey. Here's an OTB AM flash. I haven't seen this. I don't know what this is going to be. I'm a little bit worried. This is from September 2018.
Very interested to get your take on what you felt when you saw Joey Carbery at the weekend. Well, I can tell you on page 22 in the Irish Times, Jerry Thornley is writing, Carbery's time in red could extend well beyond 2 years. And my favourite line in this, particularly for the Thai man I have in studio with me, is this. When Blackrock and the Leinster Academy can each claim some small slice of Carbery, his family and rugby roots are essentially in Athy, which is not a million miles from Munster. Depending on how he takes to Munster and they to him, and how in the meantime Leinster progress without him, this arrangement could extend well beyond 2 years. So, Ger, I regret to inform you, you're from a place that isn't too far from Munster. You're basically a Munster man, so feel free to jump ship at any time and get on the red jersey. The invitation's still there. Come join us. Come be with us. Get in the boat.
You're such a cock.
Like it's far, isn't it, Neil? You're welcome, by the way.
How are you doing, guys?
It's a far better life where we come from as rugby fans of Munster. It's just.
Are you a rugby fan, are you?
Well, for the purpose of the Joey Carbery conversation.
Hey!
It's like the early 2000s again. The bandwagon's back.
It's nice to paddle away on this bandwagon, this boat.
I forgot the Munster fans hate the hierarchy of hatred is like. Leinster fans, Munster bandwagoners are like below Leinster fans on the totem pole. They'd much rather have a rugby conversation.
I'll tell you,
Leinster fans.
I'll tell you now. I've been a Munster
football.
bandwagon since at least 2006.
At least.
It could have been 2005, but I've been a Munster fan since 2006. So I'm an early bandwagoner, but a bandwagoner all the same.
Do you know what you're like, actually?
There's room.
My dad, Kerry man, a GA man through and through, yeah. He retired there last summer, so we decided we'd chip in, we'd get him a Munster season ticket for the season. He liked rugby, you know. Wouldn't have gone too much before. We got him a season ticket. Delighted that last week, renewed it himself.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
He's on the bandwagon, he's staying on it.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's what a good Munster man like Joey Carbery will do for the fans.
Exactly, yeah. Leads us on nicely into the conversation.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is big news for Munster, right? Because it's like a proper... There must have been some concern that this was a convenient, arranged marriage that would last as long as the World Cup and then all bets are off.
Yeah, and I think the timing of it is great as well because, it was a 2-year deal initially, so if this wasn't wrapped up before the end of this season, you're heading into a World Cup, and I'd say all of a sudden people probably would still start be asking, so Joey, what are you going to do at the end of the season? Are you heading back up the M7 to head back to Leinster, or are you going to hang around for another couple of seasons? And to have that basically done and dusted with no more talk of it for another couple of years, it's just brilliant for Munster fans to sit back and enjoy it.
Yeah, you do wonder about, from the players' individual perspectives, would you not wait and see how your World Cup goes and then kind of go, oh, look, I've got a phone call here from Racing. Oh, there's Stad. Oh, Toulon. Oh, it's like, no, just from a pure financial perspective?
Probably, yeah, but at the same time, he's still a very young man. He obviously has aspirations of getting further up the pecking order at Ireland, and his long-term ambitions of being Ireland's first choice out half. The move has gone very well from so far. The fans absolutely love him so far. He's clearly linking in well with the team, and they're starting to play more around him as well. He's been given, he's given license to kind of do his own thing a little bit in midfield there, and I think it's just probably a move that suited him so far, and just get it out of the way. Have your near future wrapped up for a couple of seasons.
From a position at the kind of start of last year when Tyler Blendall's injury problem looked like they weren't going to clear up, it looked like this was a long-term position of weakness for Munster. It has now, given that Blendall is fit again and coming back to something akin to his best form, it's now a position of real strength where it's like, so you have in Carbery, a transcendent talent who it looks like is going to hopefully go on to become world class in his position, and you also have Tyler Blendall, who, if Carbery's not around, is going to be more than just a game manager, somebody who will be pushing him the whole way along. It's pretty sensational. Yeah,
and you've JJ Hanrahan in there as well, who has probably started to grow a bit more into himself this season. He's probably got to play a little bit more as well, and with Ian Keatley leaving midway through this season, and he'll be on for next season to Italy. There's probably just a bit more certainty there for someone like JJ Hanrahan about how much he's probably going to get to play. And I think in the last couple of months you might have just seen there's maybe a little bit more confidence in him that he's probably not as worried as he might have been a few months back when Carbery had come in.
The other deal that was done, which is going to go under the radar, is Mathewson's extension at Munster. Just like watching them last Saturday, I do wonder if there's like a decision to be made at some point over the next couple of months. Obviously, Conor Murray's going to get back to close to Conor Murray form. We'd imagine that the Six Nations was a blip, or he just hasn't played enough game time. Like, at what point does Conor Murray's form become a situation where Johan van Graan has got to make a decision at 9 if they're both fit?
I think it's still a long way from that yet. Like, Mathewson's only signed up till after the World Cup anyway. He's only just signed up to basically to hang around there while Conor Murray's presumably gone to the World Cup. I know they'll have Nick McCarthy will be there at that stage, and Neil Cronin has got some game time this season as well. But it's just really to have one more experienced body in there for the World Cup period. I think Murray's form would need to drop considerably more than it is at the moment for him to be really, really worried about his starting position.
Yeah, like just looking at it at the weekend as well, he's a bit of a man who can stir things up a bit. He picked up a needless penalty in the first half of that game against Zebre on Saturday, but is that not what they need at the moment? Is that not what, I guess, on a national level, even Irish rugby can look at and is like, we need a few more players who are willing to stir the pot a bit on the pitch? Yeah,
like that penalty he gave away at the weekend, it was a fairly foolish one to give away, but overall this season I think he's proved to be very popular in the squad because he's a player of enormous experience. And I think having players of that experience, especially from outside Ireland as well, I think it works very well when you have all those internationals away during the Six Nations periods when they're not available. Having an older guy who's been around the block and knows the drill is a very good guy to have in the squad. Like you would have seen it, I know Easton Asewa and it was an exceptional player even when all the internationals were around. I mean, he would have been one of the first names on the team sheet, but you could see the leadership he would have brought to that Leinster team, those really young players last season and in the last couple of years when they would have had droves of players away on Six Nations or, autumn international duty.
There is a scenario where outside the scrum half, or even if Mathewson starts, where only Keith Earls would have been produced by the Munster Academy in that backline. Sammy Arnold and Farrell, Mike Haley and Andrew Conway on top of the out-half situation.
Rory Scannell will be a starter, would he?
I think it would probably be Scannell and Farrell would be the first just center.
Okay.
So you're talking two.
Yeah. That's a little bit worrying, right?
A little bit. I think probably 2-3 seasons ago you probably would have been a bit concerned about the amount of players Munster were producing. I think though in the last year or two, like you look at the Irish under-20s team that won the Six Nations Grand Slam, there were a lot of really good Munster lads in there who played vital parts. You're looking at like Jake Flannery, Sean French, Jonathan Wren, Craig Casey, the scrum half, had an absolute blinder of a tournament.
Is he tall? Is he another?
Craig Casey?
Yeah.
Oh, very small.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Do you remember he dumped was it Jordan Joseph, the French number 8 on his backside?
Do we need just a little change in our recruitment policy where we love you 5'9" people, you're great, but could we just have a 6'1" scrum half for?
We need to be looking into genetics or something like that.
Yeah. But then there are others as well who've kind of got game time in the last couple of years. Fineen Wycherley, his younger brother Josh then was playing on the Irish under-20s as well. They're both very highly rated. Liam O'Connor.
Wycherley's where do they play?
The Fineen is second row / back row, and Josh is a prop.
Right.
And John Hodnett then as well, another number 8. And then someone like Jack O'Donoghue suffered a bad injury last year. Liam O'Connor as well. There are a lot of good young players.
Lots of brilliant young forwards coming through.
Yeah.
So what is it about the schools game, the academy system, that isn't bringing through the next O'Gara or the next centres or the next full-backs?
Well, I think the group that are coming through in the last couple of years, there are a lot of really good backs in that. Like I mentioned Casey there. Jonathan Wren and Sean French were two guys I would have seen playing schools rugby, and they were absolutely phenomenal. They were brilliant when I saw them play, and in particular the two of them had massive roles in that Irish under-20s team. Another player who I think he might be primed to kind of make a step through in the next couple of years could be someone like Calvin Nash. I would have seen him play again at schools back since he was about 14, 15 years of age, and he was a phenomenal talent back then. He's got an unbelievable step, like one of those real Jordan Larmour steps. He probably just isn't kicking on as much as he might have liked to.
He's a winger.
He's a winger as well, yeah. And then Dan Goggin has forced his way into a couple of big matches this season. Big physical centre. Another young Limerick guy as well. So I think there are a few signs that they're developing players. They probably haven't developed a star like they would have had with that kind of those few years with Simon Zebo, Peter O'Mahony, Conor Murray, and Keith Earls maybe coming in a few years before them, they just kind of went on a roll where they produced 3 or 4 absolute, world talents. But
yeah, and in fairness,
there probably were a few fallow years, but I think there are signs that there are players there ready to come through.
Simon Zebo being allowed to go isn't really a Munster issue, it's an Irish rugby issue as opposed to anything.
Yeah.
Because his face doesn't fit with the Ireland team, so therefore he doesn't get offered the contract, he's not going to play international rugby, he's like, well, why would I stay? That seems to make sense.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's it's certainly his decision to leave, and I think a lot of people would have understood that there was a massive contract on the table there, and I think Munster fans pretty much let him go with his blessing. And
do you have any concerns about the dilution of the Munster brand and the Munster ethic when there are so many players from outside, particularly players who are switching from your greatest rival in Leinster to come and play for Munster?
I wouldn't normally. I wouldn't really be massively concerned about it, because I think most of the ones that have come in, they've pretty much bought into Munster. Like Andrew Conway is one of those who in the last couple of years has been so popular.
But can we just address that with the way you asked that question, the dilution of the Munster brand? Are you concerned with the dilution of the Munster brand? Let's spool that back a bit. Do you think the brand is being diluted, as Ger suggested in his question there?
I don't think so, really, no. No, I really don't.
That is the question I'm asking.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it is automatically. There's a possibility that it might become diluted at some point. And then
on the other hand, we mentioned it there with Zebo, it's a professional sport.
Well, that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
So, the Irish provinces have had this inbuilt energy and thing that propels them forward, and that has been the bind with the locality. And they've tried to harness that. When you think back to what Pat Lam did when he came in and talked about the counties of Connacht and kind of trying to just embed a sense of locality in place, and the players responded to that. And despite the fact that a bunch of those players weren't from Connacht. I don't know, I think that we just need to be very careful about tampering with the ecosystem in the very blatant professional way that we've done it, because professional sport is about winning, and it's purely cynical to get outcomes. At some point, those outcomes, maybe no one gives a shit about it. Maybe fans don't care about anything other than winning, and fair enough. And that you could put 15 New Zealanders in the Munster jerseys, and if they played the best rugby that the Munster fans have ever seen, and they all sing, stand up and fight, then happy days, everybody. I don't know if everybody's happy with that, but
Can I ask you a question? I get your Joey Carbery connection because of Athy and all that. Do you feel a connection with Leinster as a province, as a geographical place, and that when you see Johnny Sexton kicking scores for Leinster, you feel even a more local pride than you see when he kicks scores for Ireland? Do you identify with the geographical nature of Leinster?
No, because it's the 4 provinces of Ireland are this kind of thing that we have had since I don't know, was it Queen Maeve's time? Isn't that when the provinces were?
Let's give her credit, yeah.
But the style of rugby that they play is something that is fairly thrilling, and the fact that those, that's a team that you support growing up, and they have this long period of not being very good and being killed by their local rivals in humiliating fashion on a fairly regular basis, and then they become really good. It's that's an amazing thing to witness. And then players from your town start representing that team. Of course you're going to have a bond with them. That's the whole point.
I get the town thing. That's totally acceptable. And I can see why when Joey Carbery gets pulled away from you as an Athy local.
There's two Athy lads playing for Munster now.
Yeah.
It's mad. It's a bit mad.
Yeah, but I mean, look at 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more, you had quite a few Munster guys playing over in Leinster.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even more recently, Owen Redden, Mike Ross, 2 guys who would have...
They both were forced out of Munster, though. I think it's a different situation. They both had to leave because of, Jekyll Kidney, and went off and made their way in England and then came back. It's not like...
but someone like Tyg Byrne is the exact same there. He wasn't given the chance at Leinster, so he had to go away, and all of a sudden, and I don't think wow, that guy's amazing, let's get him home.
And look, I think that, I can see Tyg Byrne's motivation against Leinster being off the charts, and I totally understand that. And I think that's a different situation. Whereas, and so Jeremy Lukeman's exactly the same, right? Absolutely, you go and you make it and you kill it as best as you can, and that's great. But it's when it's these players who are marquee players who you know are going to be marquee players, and you start going, it just feels a little bit Game of Thrones, where there's a controlling force going, this rivalry matters not a jot to me, even though I run Irish rugby. What I care about is the naked results and the outcomes of the revenue generating national team, and that's all we really care about. This stuff, you know, I will try my best to manipulate everybody to feel like, you know, I will make the situation as cutthroat as I possibly can, because ultimately that's just to my benefit. So it just feels like there's a bit of a game being played with the relationship that fans have with their team, that supporters have with their team as opposed to fans.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think you're talking there about, like, you know, the rivalry and maybe, like, you know, the Munster-Leinster thing. Like, that most recent Munster-Leinster game in December, that was the most fierce one we've probably seen for a few years.
It's true, yeah.
And someone like Joey Carbery was right in the thick of it, with, you know, Johnny Sexton shoving him around.
I wonder, it feels like it's being manipulated by David Newsfora. Like
the idea that you say that it's, well, I can't remember the term you used, that it's weird, or that it shouldn't be that, like, Athy players are now going from Leinster to Munster.
Maybe it should be, and maybe that's all irrelevant. But then in that case, then what's the point in having a tie to your local province? What's the point in supporting? So ultimately, you just support the people you like, as opposed to the team. What's the bond to the team?
It's more than where the players are from. Like, I mean, we've spoken here in the past, like, wild speculation that rugby in Ireland could do with a draft system. Like, you look at American sports and their draft systems. If you're somebody who's grown up, say, like LeBron James in Ohio, and goes through the ranks and manages to play for Cleveland, great. But what happens if somebody else was in that position and Cleveland were brilliant and they're not the first draft pick, and suddenly Los Angeles are the team that are picking them, or somebody closer to home?
You've already entered college, though.
But, like, that's ultimately also a Game of Thrones. Ultimately, it's just whoever's in the right place at the right time gets to pick. And, like, just because somebody's not from your place, or because there is a team that is closer to their actual hometown, doesn't mean that group of supporters can't really get behind that player, or they feel a lessened sense of identity for their team.
So that's obviously the most nakedly commercial professional sport on the planet, and that's the point of that, is to make everybody money. The owners get together, create a monopoly system, keep the money in themselves, suppress the value of the players. Like, it's a pretty evil system when you think about it. It's just designed to pump up the value of the individual teams and make the owners rich. This is supposed to be a sport where it's about the values of Munster and the values of Leinster, and Remember, it was supposed to be like, that's the point of rugby. And so the draft system, if the draft system happened after school and then they were going to become professional players, they would go through the academy and they would have their time in the academy. Or maybe if it's at the end of the academy, I don't know, then that becomes a bit like, what's
the point?
Yeah.
I just think with so many players from Leinster going, not just to Munster, but to Connacht and Ulster as well, I think what's a big thing is, it's not just guys who are leaving Leinster and deciding, I need to pick up a paycheck somewhere. I'll just find a club. You know, most of these guys like Joey Carbery, Tog Byrne coming back to Ireland, Chris Farrell when he joined Munster, Geordie Murphy going over to Ulster, Marty Moore coming home, going over to Ulster. These guys, the ultimate goal is they want to play for Ireland. They want to be the absolute best player they can. So if they're going to your province and they have that attitude of, I want to be the best player I can, I want to ultimately play for Ireland, I'm not going over there because they're offering me a nice paycheck. They might be offering that as well. But I think the fans will be happy enough for that.
Yeah.
Because ultimately that kind of constitutes as the buy-in, doesn't it? Yeah,
I mean, it does clearly delineate the hierarchy is massive between Ireland and the provinces. Like, it means that ultimately all that matters really is the Irish stuff, and the provinces are great and mildly diverting. When actually the rest of the world seems to be going towards your club is hugely important, and there's massive value in the Premiership and in the top 14 in having those clubs, and maybe that's why those leagues are ultimately at the moment looks like bound for failure. So I'm just posing these questions. Certainly feel like you just need to be careful when you start messing around with supply chains. Like, I totally understand the Ireland team, and if somebody comes and signs, although because they're professionals, they're always going to like say the right things. Act
but I mean, for the most part, they're doing the right things as well on the pitch. You know, that's obviously where it all matters. Like, a Munster fan is going to be fully bought into whoever is there if they're doing it on the pitch. Like, you look at what 2.5, 3 years ago, Jaakko Taude came in on a short-term loan from Munster.
Yeah.
He straight away, he just became part of this big Munster family kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Put in some good performances, and the fans absolutely loved him to the point where they kind of had to offer him a new contract straight away.
So did Bernd Grobler though, didn't he? And that's kind of the point about, like, the fan bases will take whatever player is playing for them and ignore what has led to them being there if they think that it's going to work out for them in a way. I think that...
Yeah, I think it's
the point, though, isn't it? That,
I think it's a different situation with Grobler, though, because there was, at least with Grobler, there was an actual fundamental reason where you might disagree with him joining, coming into the Irish system or coming into a province, whereas, it'd be a completely different situation if you're saying he came through the Leinster system. It's two completely different things there, I think.
I'm not sure. I think they're all on a scale. Anyway, good stuff, Neil. Thanks for joining us this morning. Not bitter at all.